Sam?
Yep, we got you,
okay.
Sam.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if my microphone was working.
Okay. And I'll come back around. Was there anyone from Fayette or Randolph? Nope. I was just trying to make sure I got whoever that we have proposed in the current award on here. Not that no one else can be here, but
Indeed, no problems. Did you have anybody else on your list, Christina?
those we have 10 subs this year, and we went through them all.
Okay, great. I'm sure we'll probably have one or two more folks join up. Like I said, there was about 20 that did join.
Yeah.
So, or that did say that they were going to be here today. So it looks like we're up to 16 folks online. Are any of the few folks that just joined online from Randolph County or Fayette County Health Department? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, as a reminder, we are recording this meeting. So if you don't want to be recorded and you have questions, don't want your voice out there on the YouTube, so it's our private link on our YouTube page. Feel free to disconnect now, and we will upload it to our YouTube page so you can review at a later date and time. Just like the previous two versions of this training, our last 2 years, they're on our YouTube page as well. But every year we try to make sure that we are communicating what the current status is for the grants and if there are any changes. So while you may be able to look at last year's, there may be some subtle changes this year. So we highly encourage you to make sure that you always meet these training opportunities as you have done so far. And we'll be able to shoot a copy of this out to everyone after we're all said and done. And again, this will be posted on the YouTube page. So without further ado, we'll kind of go ahead and get started. And I did want to, just because we do have a good core group of folks here, and I know we normally do our traditional hospital pulse check during this time frame. So I did want to give folks just a quick opportunity to say if they had any issues or things that they needed elevated today before we present, so I can make sure that we can follow up with that. I don't want that to get lost. So does anyone have any regional priorities or needs that need to be met today where they require support from the RHCC or otherwise? So I'll pause for a second. And that can be any questions, equipment, supply support, anything like that.
Boyd needs some small N95 masks.
All right, I'm writing that down, and I will see. So you said some small N95s. Let me get my little notes out to the side.
Yeah, we do not presently have smalls, Phil. All we have are the universal, the one size fits some.
Okay.
Okay, but I still got that written down. Okay, thanks, Lee. Anyone else with any pressing or urgent needs that we can take a look at and see if we can help source equipment, training, information, or otherwise? Okay, since we've done that, we've had 3 other folks join on since we started. We started with 16, now there are 19 folks. So if you have not made yourself present, please sound off and let us know that you're here so we can capture you for attendance purposes.
It's Molly and Green is here.
Okay. Molly, Green
Brian Eckert with Monroe.
Okay, Brian, Monroe County. Okay. Anyone else?
Amy Francis with Touche.
Gotcha, Amy. So we got you and Eric on as well. Okay, perfect. As a reminder, before we get started, please mute your phones unless you are talking or asking a question. That will make it easier to make it through this in one take, so we don't have too many. Please mute your mics, mute your mics, mute your mics. So please take an opportunity to do so. While you do that, I'll kind of give a little introduction. As per usual, each year for those subawardees, our grants management office here at BJC has been providing annual training for folks. With this annual training, it's not the end all be all, but it is a great primer for some of you folks who've never dealt with the grant. or maybe this is your first time being a sub-awardee. So please read and heed, listen to what Christina is going to present. This is a good opportunity to ask those questions. This is not your only opportunity. As always, you can email myself or Christina directly with specific questions, but we want to make this an opportunity for you guys to get your information and then be able to press forward I'm going to say in a winning scenario, so you don't have to go back, resubmit other paperwork and everything like that. So without further ado, Christina is with us today, and we're going to go through, we got about 21 slides that we're going to, and that includes the beginning and the end. So the middle is about 19 slides worth of information. So as most of you guys know, Christina is my right hand, left hand, right foot, left foot when it comes to everything grant related with the BJC Grants Management Office. She keeps not only our organization as Memorial, but she keeps all of us together, in line, so we meet all the federal requirements when it comes to the grant and the sub award. So she's a wealth of knowledge, and she does a lot of great work and helps us out tremendously each and every month. So at least when it's not closed, if that's right, Christina. During close, like most accountants, they're extremely busy. So she's got to do a lot of stuff there. So, but she does a lot of great work. She's an asset to us as a coalition, especially being the fiduciary portion of that here. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Christina. And just let me know when you want me to advance the slide, and I will.
Okay, just kind of an FYI, I saw today, it looks like they finally signed the fiscal 21 executed award. So with that said, my goal is to get the actual sub-agreements out to you guys by next Friday so that you guys can review and sign and forward back. Nothing can be billed until those are executed. And before we, I guess, get started, I'm not sure where at in the presentation it is, just be very aware that they're way more particular when it comes to changes in the sub-agreements, and what if you want to change something, now is the time to try to do it before we issue the original agreement, because they look at it in much more detail and scrutinize it more if we issue a sub-agreement and then go behind a month later and change it. So if there are changes that need to be done to yours, please let us know as soon as possible so we can get that done before we issue them. So any questions so far? So our presentation is very similar to last year. We're just going to go through some of the requirements and things that we're looking for and the things that are expected of the subs. So here's our little agenda. We're going to go over the sub-recipient grant agreement, the post-award process, which is basically billing. We're going to go over some frequent errors and then ask questions. Of course, you guys are welcome to ask questions along the way. And just as a note, this is just intended to cover like highlights and topics, reminders, and is not everything that's required in each sub-agreement. We do include all of our requirements are pushed down to all the sub-agreements. So we include our sub-agreement, our main agreement, excuse me, in the sub-agreements. I encourage everyone to take a look at that because you're required to follow the same things that we have to follow as well. So you want to go ahead and go up, Bill? Okay, so each sub-agreement will need to review and provide any questions or comments to the GMO office prior to signing it. Realize some people kind of get ahead of themselves and sign it before they realize what they're signing, or they don't double check all the agreement that's in there, or the things that you're being awarded. Sometimes along the way, things kind of change, and we don't always, you and or I, don't always remember everything that's happened. So definitely double check what you're being awarded prior to signing your agreement so we can make any changes. that may be necessary, because the changes have to be made prior to the purchase. So it's very important, say in your original agreement, say you were going to buy 100 radios and that changed. Now you're not going to buy 100 radios. You're going to buy something else. But if we issue that agreement with 100 radios and you've already bought them, we can't go back and do anything later. We can't retroactive something you've already purchased. So that's very important. We haven't had a ton of issues with that, but it seems like every year we have a little something get hung up there. So there will be a specific period of performance. Right now, it ends on 6/30/2021. Phil, I'm trying to find out if we do a no cost extension, if we can somehow write it in the agreement so that the subs are automatically extended as well. There's no clear answer for that right now, but hopefully I'll have something in the next few days for that. Anything that was originally proposed as of this point from the subs to Phil that made it into the agreement will be able to go back and be retroactively billed once the agreements are signed. So if you purchased something last month and it was in the original agreement, you should be covered to go back and bill that once it's executed. The hiccups you're going to have is, like I said before, if you've wanted to change something and that was not in the original agreement, we're going to have issues there. So just kind of FYI. You want to go ahead and go to the next one? Host award. This is always fun. I know there's not a lot of travel this year. However, actually, go to the, trying to remember. So go to the next slide. Okay, federal procurement. So anything that is above that $10,000 threshold really should be, you guys should be doing, analysis and getting competitive quotes and whatnot. I encourage everyone to take a look at the federal procurement standards, because even though we don't always ask for them, at BJC from you, you're still required to follow them. So if the auditors come down and want us to provide support for that, we will come back to ask you. Or in very rare cases, if there's something that sends us a red flag, we might have to ask for it just so that we have it on file. I think I only had to ask for a couple invoices last year. It's not a huge thing. You guys are required to follow those as well. And we have our own BJC template that we use internally just to remind us of the things that we're looking for when we do that. And so if you guys are purchasing stuff that's over that threshold and you want to see our form, just as a guideline for you guys, you're welcome to do that. It will not, it's not something you're required to do, but we do encourage you to make sure that you're hitting all those things you need to do when you're purchasing. And the key there is it has to be done prior to that order going out. Once you sent that PO out, you can't go back and do the requirements after the fact. So that's very important for both BJC and for the sub-agreements to do that. Any questions so far?
Hey, Christina, I would like to just double down on that, just so you guys know. I mean, it's not just from the sub-awardees. I fall into that trap every now and then. So again, you have to have all of that. Whatever you're going to buy has to be approved prior to. So try not to put the cart in front of the horse at any point in time. So make sure. And so if you're internally, if you're going to say you're going to buy, 10 widgets, make sure that the 10 widgets is in the budget. Don't say, I talked to Phil and I told him I'm going to buy 10 widgets, but I haven't done a budget revision or anything else yet. Make sure that is an approved purchase beforehand, because it could be something that you are not reimbursed for. And if that's a big ticket item, or it could be a lot of small tickets, but if it's 80% of what you had in your grant, even if your grant was only $10,000, you're probably not going to get that $8,000 back. So please, please, please make sure that those are all approved before you run your card or do a PO.
And just as a reminder, this isn't always about picking the cheapest item either. We understand, the federal government understands that sometimes it's not the cheapest item that you want to buy, as long as you have reasons behind why you chose that vendor. Maybe it's you don't want to wait 6 months to have something delivered by the cheapest vendor. Maybe it's a quality issue. You just have to have that documented prior to the purchase order being issued, prior to you calling the person and saying, hey, can you send me this or whatnot. So it doesn't even have to be a PO, but if you've started those discussions and you've ordered something verbally or through an email, and it's over $10,000, it really should be doing those procurement standards to make sure that it is allowable and that you've checked all your boxes. Because there's also some stuff out there where you have to make sure that the vendors you're using aren't on like prohibited list. SAMS.gov that tells you basically if someone is like on a, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't find it now. Basically, there's lists that they keep to say, hey, you can't order from these people, whether it's because, they're having payment issues or quality issues or they've done something illegal. But that's a really easy thing to do. You just go to CM.gov, look up the company, and it'll tell you straight off if you're not allowed to do business with them. Which honestly, I think I've only seen it once in all the years I've been doing this. So, and it wasn't with I don't think it was here at BJC. So that's kind of the overview of the procurement. Any questions on that side of it? You want to go to the next one, Phil? This just shows you where SAMS.gov is, that you can go and you could go here and make sure that you can do business with them. And it kind of gives you an idea of, we recommend 3 quotes. We realize that 3 quotes isn't always, doable, but that's kind of like our beginning point there. It's exclusions and debarments. That's what it is on SAM.gov. You're going to make sure that whoever you're doing business with do not have any exclusion or debarments. You want to go to the next one, Phil? Travel. There's not a lot of travel going on this year. However, we do have to remember that if you pay for some type of travel or a conference in advance, we cannot bill it until that conference or training has occurred. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be an issue this year, but I think maybe only 1 or 2 subs might even have travel on there. Gonna go ahead and go, Phil. Allowable, allocable, and reasonable expenses. Most of you probably kind of get a general idea of this, but this just tells you where you can go in the CFR to make sure that the expenses that you're budgeting and are billing are allowable. Keep in mind, even if we approve something in your sub agreement, if it comes down that it's not allowable expense, even if we put it in your budget, there's nothing we can do about that. We won't be able to bill it. That doesn't really happen because there's not a lot of things that are just blatantly not allowed. But the bigger thing is you want to make sure that, if you're buying something, that it is for the purposes of the award and that it's being used in that manner as well. You want to go, Phil? These are just some more guidelines to go through to make sure it's necessary and reasonable. It conforms with any limitations, generally accepted accounting principles, all that great stuff. And always document. Always say, you don't have to send us the documentation for everything, but always make sure you have it just in case we have to come back and get it later. You can go ahead and go, Phil. Modifications. Any deviation from the approved budget must be submitted for approval to the BJC GMO and Protestant Memorial Medical Center prior to purchase. We've kind of went through it already, but we just need to make sure that everyone is submitting those requests before any type of purchase is being made. Now, there are some, we do build in that 10% allowance to the award. So, I mean, if you're you have a $10,000 award and $5,000 of it is computers, and you go, a few $100s over, and but you went under in another category, we could still bill that. There's a little bit of adjustment, allowability between the different categories, but it can't be more than a 10% change. So, I mean, there is some give. You just have to be careful what that is. So does that make sense so far? And we always recommend everything in writing because, like I said, there's so much stuff going on. We don't always follow everything with phone calls. I know Phil's like 10 times busier now than he was even a year ago. So. Which I'm sure everyone is. We get it even on the GMO side. We have people calling up saying, "Oh, here's some more funds. Can you do this tomorrow?" And it's crazy. So go ahead and go to the next one, Phil. Change in project director or scope of work. So if your contact on your subgrants is changed, we really need to know that. We didn't run into many issues this past year, but the year before, there were several people that left. We didn't know that they left. And then the new people didn't even know what their award was, so they couldn't spend it because they didn't know it existed. There was just some communication that really got dropped there. So if anything's changing and who's taking over the award, or if someone's on leave or whatnot, please try to give us a heads up, or so that we can try to get in contact with you, especially if you have funds out there, you want to use them. But if we can't get a hold of anybody and you guys don't know who to contact on our end, because unfortunately, like that one subgrantee just didn't even know they had an award because the person who managed it left. So if you can let us know as soon as possible if those changes are being made, we would greatly appreciate that. You want to go ahead and go to the next one, Phil? Invoicing and reporting procedures. Okay, so in the subgrants agreement, just as in past years, all invoices are going to be submitted within 30 days of the month end. Now, we realize that the agreements are going out even later this year. We were doing good. We got them out earlier last year, but then now it's later this year. But anyway, within 30 days of the month end, we need invoices, even if it's a zero amount. So I realize there's going to be a whole lot of months starting from July 2020 on that may be zero. We still need you to issue those $0 invoices with signatures. And keep in mind that everything needs to be filled out on them. You need your prior period costs, your current period costs, your cumulative cost. I will send you a template. The appropriate person has to sign it, and it's identified in each of your sub-agreements who those people are, which you should know too, because you will get, some of you have already gotten it, some of you are pinning it, a sheet that's basically ask you to tell us who those people are so that we can put them in the agreement. If they're not received within 30 days of the month end, it is possible that those expenses might not get reimbursed. We try not to do that, but especially as we get close to the end of the award, there's only, so much we can do on our end too. The final invoice will be due 20 days after the budget period end. And that's because we have to do a final bill within 30 days ourselves. So we have to know like what is sitting out there so that we can final bill it on our end. If we don't get it in our bill, then we don't have the funds to reimburse you guys either. So, and I always say, we get crazy busy over at GMO sometimes too, so don't be afraid to send me some gentle reminders asking me, hey, have you got my invoice? What's the status of that? I know this past year we had a couple payments get lost somehow. I think we finally did trace all those down. But if you haven't got a payment in, please let us know. Even if it's a check, it's a little bit of a process, but we can go back and see when the check was issued and if it was cashed, and even the day that it cleared our accounts. Can't always tell you who cashed it, but I can tell you if it was cashed. I think I touched everything there. Any questions so far? Okay, go ahead and go, Phil. Reminders, invoices have to be submitted on the template that we send you, and I will send you those when we send out the agreements. It has to be physically signed with an actual signature and dated. It can't just have someone's typed name in there. We really need physical signatures. We realize a lot of people are digital nowadays. There are ways to do a digital signature, but it just can't be someone typing a name in. Only items approved in the subgrantee budget can be invoiced, and I will include it in that invoice will be the category specific to each sub. So if you're trying to bill equipment and there's not an equipment line on your invoice, then there's, some miscommunication somewhere along the way. And sometimes it's just that you call it equipment and we call it supplies. Doesn't mean that what you have is unallowable. It's just we have to get it in the right bucket. So occasionally you will see us come back and be like, is this, should you really be budgeting, or should you really be billing this? And as we stated before, everything has to be allowable, and reasonable. Any late invoices could be rejected. Like I said, I really try not to do that. I think there was only one last year that we were not able to pay out, and that was because a sub, my understanding was that they paid an invoice. They didn't realize that they had already incurred that cost, and it was already at the end of the award. It was for a prior year. We had already submitted our audit and our CFA and all that stuff. So there's nothing we can do about it. When we're in June and someone's wanting reimbursed for something, they paid it back in October. Now, that being said, when we issue these sub agreements next week, and if you bought something in October that was allowable and is in the sub agreement, we will still reimburse that, but we need you to be submitting those invoices to us now, not in like June, for something that happened last year. So, and those invoices we ask that you send them to both the GMO mailbox, myself, and Phil. And that's just in case someone ends up out or sick, someone else will be able to get that invoice and start the review process and getting it sent through for payment. You can go, Phil. This is an example of that template that you're going to get. This one has all the different categories in it. Yours will be specific to just your award. It will also have your total award on there. When we send out your agreement, it'll have a detailed list of the items that were in your proposal. So if you get that sub agreement and you're like, wait, I don't think I proposed this, let us know right away so we can try to correct that issue. You can go ahead and go to the next one, Phil. Audit requirements. We are required to do our audit every year because we do more than $750,000 in federal awards, which seems to be increasing every year. So because we're required, especially this coming year, pretty sure that this award will be audited because we haven't had any findings in a few years, but every 3 years, I believe, they have to pull stuff from it. So as we always try to make sure we're as thorough as possible, but this year you might be hearing back from us even more if someone comes back and wants us to get more documentation from you. So just, an FYI that to keep that documentation just in case, because if something comes back unallowable, even though we've paid it out, the agreements state that if you build something unallowable and we find out it's unallowable even after we bill it, that those funds could be requested to be returned. So I have not had to do that, and I hope to never have to do that, but it is a possibility. Do you want to go to the next one, Phil? These are just some additional CFRs that we want you to be aware of, how long you're supposed to be keeping these records. So it's 3 years from the date from the final expenditure report. So for instance, when this award ends, like one we're currently in right now. So say it gets extended till June of next year. And we submit it on July 30th of 2022, that final invoice, they can still audit us up to 2025. So those records need to be kept for at least 3 years. And that's passed down to you as well. So I'm sure everyone's doing that, but just FYI, just in case. You can go ahead and go to the next one, Phil. To avoid frequent errors, invoice costs by budget category must match award approved budget line items. We're good. Actually, we did a pretty good job last year, but there is the occasional issue where you guys sometimes think it's one item and we think it's another item. So just make sure we're getting those categories correct. Because if they're correct coming in, you're going to have less questions from me. If I have to come back and ask you for something, then there's, or ask you to change something, then I might have to ask for more documentation. And I don't want to do that unless I have to. And I'm sure you don't want me to ask for more stuff either. They must be assigned by the appropriate official, or if the invoice is revised, a new signature of certification is required prior to submission. So we've had a couple times in the past where we had to send an invoice back for some reason, and it was simply, written over or something, and there was no new signature. Well, obviously, if something's been changed after a signature has taken place, then it's no longer, the most up-to-date information, and we really need signatures every time something is submitted. Please include female, sorry, Bill, Bill on emails when submitting them to the GMO office. He needs to approve them as well. So if you include him, I don't always have to go, hey, Phil, can you approve this? Sometimes he'll see it and he'll upload it and send it to me, and it just makes it quicker on my end to get your reimbursement out. Always make sure that that the current amount you're billing is in that first column. The second column will be the prior cost, and then it all has to add up as well. And that's we've run into some of those issues before where you just don't get those cumulatives in there and we have to send them back, and no one wants to do that. Travel and training items can only be billed after the travel and or training has occurred. And the one we're constantly trying to remind everybody is always make sure that changes are made in the award with the correct appropriate approvals prior to any purchases being made. What you want to go to the next one, Phil? And this is just kind of an FYI. Phil does all the programmatic side of things, and I kind of try to do most of the financial side of things. Although right now we are all virtual, so I don't recommend anyone trying to call me. If you need to talk on the phone, just go ahead and send me an email, and I can give you my cell number so that we can talk. Currently, I don't know about Phil over there, but we were notified last week that at the earliest, BGC employees will be going back in the third quarter of 2021. I don't even think it'll be that early, but that being said, no one's at their desk really. So if you can always start off via email. If you need to contact someone sooner, you can contact Phil. I think most of you probably have Phil's cell phone number, but he is in the office more. And he has my cell phone number too if someone needs to contact me sooner. Always willing to try to help. What's that next slide, Phil? I think it's the last one. Oh, and here's my boss people. Lisa McDonald is our project manager over at GMO, and Sheila Eckert is the finance manager. Both of them have a wealth of knowledge and can try to help anyone they can. I will say Lisa is very rarely in the office. However, Sheila, she enjoys going to the office, so you could potentially get her on the phone if you tried to call her. Any questions? There has to be at least one question. I'm just that good today, Phil.
Well, thank you, Christina. If you guys do have any questions, feel free, give me a call, shoot myself or Christina an email, and we'll be happy to try to get back with you as soon as possible with an answer, if not immediately upon your request for additional information. So, Christina, thanks again for doing this. We hope that you guys were able to get some of the information that you needed out of here. Well, again, like I always say, this is not a cure-all for everything. So your internal policies and procedures will dictate a lot of what you do as you spend, but we want to be an oversight and an assist here for you when you do have questions or concerns. So again, programmatically, we just want to make sure, my job is to make sure it fits what we're saying we're doing for the region and for your organization. And Christina's just going to make sure that we keep our ducks in a row when it comes to the federal side of things and make sure we're documented properly. So we'll
And
get through. We
I
will
was going to
get.
say,
Go ahead.
Phil, has anyone from Fayette or Randolph got on since we started? No?
Nope.
Oh, it's worth a shot.
All right. So again, if you do have any questions, concerns, please give me a call, shoot us an email, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. I will end this here, and we will try to post this later on the YouTube page, and I'll send out a link that is posted. So thanks for everybody attending. We'll close it out here, and we will talk at you soon. Thank you.